Hello and welcome everyone. Let's give a few minutes for everyone to join. I see that people are still joining. Meanwhile, feel free to say hi in the chat and write us where you are calling from. I'm calling in from Berlin, and our speaker, whom I will introduce in a short moment, is calling from Oslo, from Norway. Information technology is a team sport, and any project needs successful collaboration to succeed. And for radical successes, you need radical collaboration. And our speaker, Andrea Altier, is a radical collaboration certified trainer. She will give us some insights today about this methodology. Welcome, Andrea. The mic is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I will share my screen now so that you can see. Yeah, thanks a lot for having me. I'm looking forward to talk about radical collaboration and how we can use that for more agility. I'll introduce myself shortly first. So my name is Andrea Altier, and I live in Oslo in Norway. I was born in Argentina, but I lived my whole life in Norway. And I have more than 20 years of experience from the tech industry in Norway. And I've started as a software developer and ended up now as a human skills developer. The reason I did this was because I found out that my true passion is to help people develop themselves and grow. So I transitioned into coaching because I started working as an Agile coach some years back, and I deep dived into professional coaching, and I found out this is my passion. This is what I want to do. So today I work with Agile leaders and Agile coaches, and basically I support people to develop their Agile leadership skills. I'm going to talk today about radical collaboration and how we can use this as a tool set to increase our team's agility. And I'm going to cover these topics, what radical collaboration is, red zone and green zones in organizations. I'm going to talk about culture and how it impacts performance. And we are going to look into 5 essential skills that are needed to create a collaborative environment, and which is also the foundation for team agility. And finally, we are going to take a look at the integrated approach, where we explore a little bit about our Agile world, which is mainly towards the outer side of the organization, and how it fits together when it meets the organization's inner side. So that's what I will cover today. So what is radical collaboration? Radical collaboration is a program that teaches you practical and usable skills that you can use when you want to create an environment where teams are more agile, where teams can be more innovative, and where teams can be more efficient. And it's a workshop that is a 3-day workshop where you learn how to build and maintain a trusting climate, how you build collaborative skills. It also covers the dynamics of interpersonal relationship, especially when there are conflicts. And there is a method for problem solving. You learn how to build partnerships, how you develop alliance building skills. And there is also a lot of experiential learning, so you get a lot of personal insights. So this is overall the radical collaboration workshop. And we're not going to cover all of it today, but it's just to give you a little bit of background about the program and what it is all about. So this program was developed by Jim Tam and Ron Liet. They wanted to answer the question, how do you create a more collaborative environment where employees are skilled at collaboration? So Jim Tam was working as a judge for the state of California when this question came up, because the state of California, they had observed that there was always the same kind of organizations that ended up in court when they had a dispute. So others, they were able to solve conflicts without ending up in court, but the same type of organizations always ended up in this conflict situation. Even if everyone had the same laws applicable to them, some groups would end up in conflict and some would not. So they wanted to find out, how do you create a more collaborative environment? And the Hewlett Foundation, they granted funds for a research project, which was created by Ron Liet, a psychiatrist, and Jim Tam together. They were early members of this group, and they developed what was back then a precursor to the radical collaboration. And they started teaching people collaborative skills, and they were having a lot of success with this. And what they discovered was that trust went up, conflicts went down, communication improved, and organizations were much more effective once they learned collaborative skills. And they also discovered these 5 skills that you need to create a trusting environment, or just to be better at building effective relationships. So we'll cover those skills a little bit later. But in addition to the radical collaboration itself, it's built on a theory that is developed by Dr. Will Schutz. So he is a founder of the human element, which is based, radical collaboration is based on the human element. And Dr. Will Schutz is a very well-known man in the US, but is not that well-known in Europe. And he had a PhD in psychology, and he was asked by the Navy when the Korean War broke out to do research on how to improve performance of battle command teams on destroyers. And until then, the Navy had thought that the best way to get teams, the best team, was to find the most competent person for each job and put them together, and then you have the best team. We know now that it doesn't work that way because of the dynamics between team members. And we have also seen more recent research with the Google Aristotle project that this is not the way to form a team. So what Will Schutz discovered was that there were some basic behaviors. So these behaviors were inclusion, control, and openness. And these behaviors impact how compatible we are with one another when we work together. So it was the behaviors of inclusion, control, and openness. So this is also kind of the foundation for radical collaboration. And in addition to that, there is a method which is called interest-based problem solving, and it's based on the book Getting to Yes. So all of these together forms the radical collaboration methodology. So that's a little bit about the background of radical collaboration and how it was created. And we'll take a look at red zone and green zones in organizations. In organizations, we experience sometimes collaborative behaviors, sometimes we experience non-collaborative behaviors. Some organizations have what we call a red zone culture, which basically means that we have our defenses up. And other organizations, they have a green zone culture, which is the term that we use to describe an environment where people feel safe. Most of our organizations wouldn't be either just red or just green, there would be a mix of the two. So when we become defensive, we don't have defenses, but the defenses have us. And defensiveness becomes our operating system, and then it determines how we see the world. So this is going to undermine, or it can undermine, our ability to develop supportive, collaborative relationships. The most important thing that you can do yourself, if you want to increase the effectiveness, your own effectiveness in relationships or in any conflicting situations, is to reduce your own defensiveness. And radical collaboration is very much about learning tools so that you can deal with your own defenses. So when our defense mechanisms are active, if I'm activated and I'm in a defense mode, I will contribute into creating a red zone environment. Because I have some kind of fear, something is activated in me, and I put up my guard. And in this case, I would be maybe not that trusting towards you. I would maybe hold back my energy. I would definitely not take any risk. I would maybe even be suspicious if you asked questions, or I would be suspicious towards you. And basically, I wouldn't be happy in the workplace. I would feel it was a bit painful for me to be there. So that is characteristics of the red zone environment. The opposite of the red zone environment is a green zone environment. In this environment, if I am not feeling defensive, I would approach you in a different way. So I would be trusting you. If something went wrong, I wouldn't blame you. I would be supportive. I would help you. I would be open and honest towards you and have a dialogue about where we are going. I would try as much as possible to cooperate with you. I would be willing to take risk. And I would feel that it is pleasurable for me to be in this environment. Research shows that a trusting culture creates a more productive, attractive, and a better place to work. And some examples of this kind of environment, if you have a green zone environment, people experience 75% less stress, 106% more energy at work, 50% higher productivity, and 76% more engagement. This is from an HBR article, the numbers I'm mentioning here, called The Neuroscience of Trust. But there is something in between. And that is the creators of radical collaboration. They found that some organization, they would say, yeah, but we are not red. We are not like visible, like aggressive or hostile in our environment. So then we must be green. But then they were not green. there was something else going on. And what they discovered was that there is a nuance here, so a more something in between, a pink zone environment, they call that, which is, it's less obvious in this kind of environment because people are more avoiding conflict. There might be unclear ownership or decision making. There might be that people hold back on their ideas, so they are not offering new ideas. There might be resistance to giving feedback, or, for example, if you need to have a difficult conversation, it's not happening. So the behavior is more like passive, and it is difficult to discover whether you are in the green or like completely green, or if you are in the pink zone, because it might appear to be collaborative, but it is not. So for an example could be that you are having a meeting, and in the meeting you decide on something, and then no one says anything in the meeting, but then when you go out of the meeting by the coffee machine or on Slack perhaps in this environment, people complain about the decision that was made, but it wasn't talked about in the meeting itself. So this is like a sign that you might be in a pink zone environment. So thinking about the research that I mentioned, where there is lack of trust and a high level of stress, I believe that it ties very much into the agility, in the sense that if we want to increase flow, if we want to increase collaboration, and also if we want to increase learning, we need to reduce our level of stress. And that means limiting work in progress. Because when we are in stress, we are not going to be our best self, we are triggered. So we will become defensive. And defenses is based on fear, and it happens automatically, unconsciously. And as I mentioned, when you are in a defense mode, the defenses have you. So it's not like you're noticing or you can kind of steer it. So it's just happening because you're triggered, because you're in so much stress. So to maintain a green environment, we need to be able to talk about stress, talk about our emotions, and share what's happening with us. So that is the different types of cultures that we can have in organizations, where there is not necessarily so that you have either red, either green or pink, but you might have a mix of this. And it could be that one team in an organization is very green, while other, for example, is more pink or red. Or within a team, it could be the same. And what kind of impact does this culture have on performance? Let's take a look at some numbers. John Cotter and Jim Heskett, both Harvard professors, they wanted to find out, does it make a difference to an organization's bottom line if you operate from the red zone or the green zone? And they did a research on this. So they studied, in their study, they included more than 200 companies across 20 different industries. And they were all listed on the New York Stock Exchange. And they selected companies that had a culture that would fit into two categories. So one was a collaborative culture, which is represented by the green zone, and the other one, a non-collaborative culture, which is the red zone or even pink zone. And then they compared these groups over an 11-year period, and they compared the different factors like net income, revenue, stock price, and workforce. And over this period of 11 years, the revenue increased with 516% more in the green zone cultures compared to the red zone cultures. the net income improved with 755 more in the green zone than in the red zone. And the workforce expanded 246% more, and stock price increased with 827% more. So this shows that culture makes a huge difference. If you were to look at the numbers, the red zone numbers isolated, you would think that, well, this is good. There is a quite good improvement here. But when you see the numbers next to each other, you see that it is making a huge difference when you have a green zone culture. These environments are more effective, they are more creative, they have lower turnover, and people enjoy more working in these kind of environments. But then the question comes, kind of, we know all this, right? So what do we do? What can I do to influence my environment? And that's when we come to the 5 essential skills. The first one is collaborative intention. So what does that mean? It means that I stay focused on mutual gains in our relationship, and especially when there is a conflict. So I'll repeat that. It means to stay focused on mutual gains in the relationship, and especially when there is conflict. So just having the intention to focus on the relationship changes things. And you can ask yourself, what happens if I go in the red zone, or if I kind of fade out in a meeting, I'm in the pink zone, or what happens if I stay in the green zone and I stay curious, for example, in a meeting. So Jim Temp, which was one of the developers of this program, he did an experiment. He's part of the Stockholm School of Economics, and the faculty there, and part of their international management program. And every year they do this project in the class. And one year they had this experiment where the students were asked to notice several times per day whether they were in the red zone, in the pink zone, or in the green zone. And in the beginning, when people started writing which zone they were in, most of them were in the red zone. But towards the end of that year, most of them were in green zone. And the only thing they had done was noticing which zone they were in. So having an intention is really powerful in the mindset and in the way you approach your relationships. The second one is openness. Will Schutz defined openness at the grand simplifier. And he said that the one thing that you can do to increase the level of openness in your organization is being more open. And the conclusion of this was supported by the Google's Aristotle project, which I mentioned earlier, where they studied 180 different teams, comparing high and low performing teams, or they were researching these kind of teams from all over the company. And they measured a lot of different things. For example, team demographics, personality traits, team dynamics, hobbies, how much members socialized outside of work. Anything that could be measured, they measured. And they didn't really find any strong patterns or differences between high and low performing teams. But after studying for a year, they find that norms might play a big role. After 2 years, they found it was psychological safety. And the term comes from Harvard professor Amy Edmondson, which you probably have heard about. And she defines psychological safety as a shared belief held by members of a team that it is safe for the team to take interpersonal risk, which is the same as a green zone culture. And taking risk is part of that, is being open about how you are feeling, what you're experiencing in the moment. And that contributes to creating this psychological safety. The third skill is self-accountability. The key here is to be more aware of the choices that you make and the choices that co-created the situation that you are in. So that means there are many choices available to you. And if you notice yourself thinking, I don't have any choice, I have to do this, then the red flag should kind of move up, and you should think about, do I really not have a choice in this situation? Your belief system about choices has a very, very big impact. When people change their belief system about choice, it can be very empowering for the individual, but also in the organization. If you take responsibility for your choices, you will also take responsibility for choices that are more unconscious. So let's say you decided not to do something in a certain situation. That is also a choice. And choices have intended consequences. Sometimes they have unintended consequences. So often when people refuse to acknowledge a connection between their own behavior and the negative consequences, it's about self-accountability and really the view on choice. The fourth skill is about awareness of self and others. This is about a commitment to knowing yourself deeply and to continue to explore your inner motivations, your intentions, your fears, your blind spots, and your defense mechanisms. Even exploring, when do I become rigid? Defensiveness is what gets us into trouble. So when you become aware of your own defensiveness and you're able to cultivate a non-defensive presence, that is where you have more awareness of yourself and you can have more awareness towards others so that you can understand others' concerns, other intentions, and others' motivation. And these four first skills, which I just mentioned, the collaborative intention, the openness, self-accountability, awareness of self and others, all of these are the foundation for the next one, the interest-based problem solving, which is a methodology for solving problems in a way that supports relationships. So it promotes a cooperative atmosphere. It supports the mutual gains in a relationship. And again, it's the four first skills that make this fifth skill work. Because you probably experienced that you have a methodology and then someone doesn't really care about that methodology and starts sabotaging that. That's possible with any methodology, even this one. So if you have an attitude or you are defensive towards something, it's not going to work. So all of these other things needs to be in place, and then you can start with the interest-based problem solving, which is basically asking yourself some questions about what is really my interest here, and you start from there instead of taking a stand and communicate. This is my opinion on this matter, and then stand firmly on that. You would go beneath that and you would ask, what is really, what are we trying to solve here? What is my intention? And from there, you would have a different kind of discussion. So when you stay in the green zone and have a collaborative intention, you are open so that you create a safe environment, and you understand your own choices and take responsibility for those choices. And also you're aware of your rigidities and your defense mechanisms. That is when interest-based problem solving will work. So these are the 5 skills that are part of the Radical Collaboration program. And an integrated approach is the next that we will look into. So we have covered different types of cultures, the red, the pink, and the green zone, the impact culture has on performance, the 5 essential skills. And then from my perspective, the knowledge that we gain in radical collaboration, it helps us to know the specifics of what we can do, so what I can do in an environment so that I can contribute to increase my team's agility. Often we focus a lot on the outer side of the organization. So the outer side. We are very often experts on product management, and we know very well how to organize our work. So we're talking about new ways of working, we're talking about Agile, and all of these is like on the outer side of the organization. But according to Jim Tam and the radical collaboration methodology, the hidden potential is really on the inner side. The things that we don't talk about. So radical collaboration focuses a lot on what's on the collective inner side. So I would say that in Agile teams, we master the outer side very well, and we need to start talking about the collective inner side, and we need to work on the individual inner side as well. Sorry. So what's on the outer side? It's about products, it's about services, it's about tasks, measurable result, technology. On the systems and process side, it's about procedure, policies, how we make decisions, what kind of methods we use. And then when we come to the collective inner side, it's more about how do we treat each other? What kind of community are we creating? How do we contribute? And how do we work on having a shared purpose, meaning, and vision? And what do we do when there are conflicts? And as we talked about the first 4 skills, I think many of them are on the individual inner side, because we need to know our own triggers. We need to know what makes us defensive. We need to know what kind of choices we make and what kind of choices we don't make. And the consequences take responsibility for the choices that we make. So to summarize, I would like to highlight each of these areas as skills that we need to increase our team's agility. So if we embrace the concept that everyone is a leader in an Agile team, everyone is a team in a team needs to develop these Agile leadership skills to radically change the way that we collaborate. And I believe that leaders need to have an understanding of all of these aspects. So it's about the product mindset, it's about the Agile mindset, but it's also about Agile leadership, which I think you can learn that through practicing the skills defined in radical collaboration. And when you keep working on your personal agility, that's when you have kind of the full package of how to create more agility within your team, because you're creating that environment where people really can thrive, they can trust each other, and really have those difficult conversations when they are needed. And if you're curious to learn more, feel free to reach out and also share questions here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrea, for the insightful presentation. I'm already very curious to find out more. And I'm sure everyone else as well. So let's stop the recording and continue with the discussion.